So we have with us Kent Valley. He's was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Marine Corps after graduating at the University of Idaho in 1962. And he was a football scholarship athlete. I know we're going to get to hear some really good things about that. He was assigned to Hawaii, and he was deployed with his unit as part of the 1st Marine Brigade to engage in combat operations with Republic of South Vietnam. That was May of 1965 to June of 1966. He was decorated with the Bronze Star with the Combat V for Valor, which it's congratulations, and that is amazing. And thank you so much for your service. My dad was in Vietnam. It's very, very special to me to be connected with that. He has also managed manages Majestic Real Estate and is the executive vice president and also senior development agent for that as well. This is your company, right, Kent? So
involved in the company. I'm one of the asset managers and one of the partners in the development team. So
yes. And he is we can go on and on. We're going to hear so many great things from Kent, longtime contributor to many, many important organizations, founding partner and president of the Bob Rope Cancer Institute, and founding partner for the Land of the Free Foundation, which I can't wait to hear more of. So Kent,
I co-founded the Land of the Free, which we can discuss later. I think that would be a discussion within itself when we get into the veterans portion of the interview.
Absolutely. That would be great. So we'll start things off, Kent. Let's start clear back to your days at University of Idaho. So tell us a little bit, before you were a football scholarship athlete, tell us a little bit more about that football career and how you ended up at University of Idaho.
Yes, I think it's very appropriate. I was born and raised in Lewiston.
Yeah, we'll get you closer to the mic if you don't mind, Kent. We're having a few remarks. There we go.
Okay, yeah, I was born and raised in Lewiston and Idaho, and played football for the Bengals at Lewiston, and three of us athletes, three football players were recruited to play by Coach Skip Staley at the university, and myself, John Hansen, and Andy Clem. And as would have it, we all ended up pledging Fiji and coming to the Fiji house, and had a good career there, both at the house and in sports as well. All three of us actually ended up signing up in the PLC program at the university to join the Marine Corps. That was kind of something that came up. I was the only one that actually finished the career. The other two, and both Andy and John, served in the reserves and actually didn't have to go on active duty. So that worked out well for them, and not as well for me, perhaps, or maybe well for me. I'm not sure. So then playing for the Vandals and being on the Vandal, we were in the Pac-8 conference in those days. We, along with Washington State, Oregon State, some of the California schools that we never played, but we had a strong conference, and it was my way through foreign education was to get in, have a scholarship, and to be able to play football at the university. I was probably not going to make it as an academia into the university. So playing football did get me in, and it was my athletic career that was responsible for my graduation from the university.
Well, Kent, what did you study at the University of Idaho? What did you graduate in?
Yeah, I was a physical education major studying coaching. I actually was, I had a pretty good job lined up after graduation at I'd been accepted as a coach at Grant Union High School in Sacramento in those days. But as would have it, my military career superseded that as I was in NROTC, and in being in NROTC for 2 years, at being a land grant college, we all had some kind of a military or a military training required by the NROT by the ROTC program, as most will remember. And then I actually signed up for the PLC program after 2 years, and then that was the Platoon Leader Corps program, and that was my entry into the Marine Corps. So upon graduation, I attended. I graduated with my degree, with my commission, and then went straight to Quantico, Virginia, in Quantico for basic military training.
So what motivated you to join the Marines versus other branches of the military?
Well, that's a great story. Actually, as a scholarship athlete, I had so many hours of work that I had to perform that were required by the Pacific 8 Conference by all student athletes. And so my job was to clean the armory at the NROTC Armory every month. And I had a schedule set up, and my the instructor, the sergeant major, who was an instructor, actually was a master sergeant, I believe at that time, was an instructor at the school, was in charge of my of signing my hours for work. And so after I got to know him pretty well, he gave me a lot of motivation to go Marine. He had a lot of attributes that I really liked, and I just seemed to feel that I would fit in the Marine Corps better than other branches of the service. Very proud that I did that. I think that the leadership and the leadership qualities in the Marine Corps are exceptional, and I got a lot out of that. It did prepare me a lot for future work. I've always been a hard worker. I started working in the pea fields and the bean fields, and when I was 12, 13 years old. So I've worked hard all my life. I still go to work every day. I'm still in my office. I still have projects. I still like, I think that keeps me active and keeps my mind working. Some people may think I ought to leave, but I don't. So.
No, you're doing great. So if we can go back to Vietnam, because I read that in your bio. Can you give us a little bit of background on what your experience was in serving Vietnam, and how do you summarize it when people ask you that question, I guess, and how?
I think it's a matter of serving your country. The reality of it is, I went into the Marine Corps. There was no Vietnam. There was nothing in front of me that would have made me think that I was going to be in any conflict. Korea was over. World War II. I saw the results of that with my father and other members of our family, and then I saw the Korean conflict arise, and we ended up with a lot of veterans, Korean veterans, in the campus. Both in our fraternity, we had a few that served, and there were a number of. The University of Idaho was a very good low-cost education for these families, so they could bring their families here. They could get through school. It was a great university for that. So I did have a lot of contact with people that had already served, and I think getting into Vietnam that was the training as as your training progresses. Pretty soon you start realizing there's something coming up. So I was living a great life in Hawaii and at Kaneohe Bay Marine Corps Air Station. We had I was with the ship landing with the base there. They had a battalion landing force that was established that was actually going to be the first strike. So when Vietnam did occur, we were actually the first ones to be sent in there. We went in there in May of of 65, and I rotated out in July of 66. But during that time, I mean, it's you're there because you're there serving your country. There's a lot going on in our conflicts today. A month ago, I would have said that that things are pretty good in the Mideast, and things are pretty good around the world. And I just got back from a week in Hawaii, and I watched the Army paratroopers paratrooping into Palakaloa, which was my old training ground, where I had trained 60 years ago for Vietnam. So it's like, what the heck is going on here? There's a lot going on that these kids that are in the military today are going to be facing, and they need our country's support. They need all of our citizens to support them. Whatever our Congress decides that we're going to do, we need to support our military. And I obviously, that's something that, we never got involved in. We never had time to really think about the political side of what we were doing. That was not our job. Our job was to, basically fight for our country and achieve, achieve what we could achieve. But we gave up a lot of good young men in Vietnam that died in my platoon and my company and our regiment and our division and in the Marine Corps, and it's too bad. But here we are today. So,
Well, Kent, you earned a Bronze Star with the Combat V for Valor in Combat, as well as other campaign unit citations. What do those honors mean to you?
They're really an honor of who I served with, of the men that you do battle with. I mean, a citation is usually a citation for everyone you're with, not just yourself. It's not an individual award. It's really a team award, if you will.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. So how did your military service impact you? What aspects of your service did you take with you into your business career?
I think hard work is, again, that, getting into, after my service, I rotated out of the Marine Corps in San Diego as a captain. And I had some friends that were up in LA at the time. One of my friends' dads had a real estate company, and it just so happened that I went up and interviewed with him, and he hired me. And now that small company that I joined, we had just one small office. Today we have 6 offices nationally. We have development offices all over the country, and we basically are one of the largest privately held real estate development firms in the U.S. So I can say that Ed Roski Jr., whose father founded the company, he and I served together, and it's the Marine Corps can-do attitude that helped both of us survive. And he and I both looked at each other this morning. We both go to work, and we've been doing this for a long time. We met the first day of basic school in 1962, and still have to look at each other. So,
and full disclosure, Kent, it sounds like Ed Roski is on this call right now. So
I said, if he gets on, I can't lie. So
That's terrific. So I think we'd love to hear a little bit more about this, about what attracted you to this line of business, and what has been maybe the most rewarding aspect of your work over the years with Majestic Realty.
Needless to say, I was a salesman, because when I was in college, my junior and senior year when I was attending the university, I sold used cars at Moose Motors downtown. So I was on a used car lot every weekend, selling automobiles, and that kind of spearheaded my sales talents, and I think that rolled over into my ability to work with people and to really understand what sales is about, and learning how to develop new programs that will assist that assist you in your in development. The real estate itself, it was just something that became, I think, natural with me. I had good training. I had good people I worked with. It always helps to have a great company around you, and you combine all of those with a good work ethic, and I think that that you'll be successful doing that.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely. What has probably been one of the most challenging things you've had to deal with this company? Have you you probably overcame those fairly easily? So
I think the economy will raise all the challenges you want. It goes up and down, and being in the business 55 years, like we have now. I mean, for me, it's we've seen the downturns are painful, but you try not to be too exposed in those downturns, and we've gotten through all of the downturns without being scathed, and we have a lot of pride in our company about never having failed in any of our ventures, and I think everything that we've done has been successful, but it takes work to make them successful.
Yep, good advice. Well, I know I want to touch on this subject that I'm sure it's very heartfelt for you, but I want to talk a little bit more of the Land of the Free Foundation. Can you share with us what that is and what kind of work does this organization do?
Yes, thank you. About 18 years ago, Ed Roski, myself, and another former military man, John Simkin, in our company, was a Top Gun pilot, and one of our development partners decided we needed to do something to give back to the military, and so we established the Land of the Free Foundation. Actually, Ed, he's a great visionary, and he's the one that came up with the name. And so John and I, we're kind of the sergeants. We go out and we run the organization. Ed tells us what to do. So, but in reality, it's really been a blessing for us to be able to work with all the foundations and work with the people that actually run these foundations. Some mom and pop, some very large. We work with Bonnie Carroll at TAPS. We work with other people from Semper Fi Fund, some of the biggest military support organizations in the country, as well as some boots on the ground mom and pop groups that need maybe $5,000, $10,000. Our fundraising event is coming up on Monday, the 13th. It's basically a Labor Day, a Veterans Day event, and is held on Veterans Day, but if Veterans Day falls on a weekend, then we have it on the following Monday. So this year it's November 13th. We typically raise somewhere over $1.5 million. All of our donations that we receive go to the foundations that we choose to support. If you go to our landofthefreefoundation.org website, you'll find those foundations. If you have a foundation, a military foundation that you would like us to look at, if you will have them look on our website, submit a letter of request for support. I believe it's by either the 1st of May or the 1st of June. Someone's going to hit me on the head for that, but I can't remember the exact date. Anyway, John and I and Ed and our team review those requests for funding, and then after our event, we decide how much money each one will get, and each one, will fund those organizations. One of the things we do ask that when we do follow we pull up their 990s and make sure that the administrative fees are not excessive. We want to make sure that those foundations that we do support are truly are getting good results. A lot of PTSD support, canine foundations, dogs, dog support for those with PTSD. We support Gold Star parents. Gold Star parents are going to be the highlight, and Gold Star families of our event this year. We start off with a great ceremony. I think that if you go on our website and pull up, there's a short video of our event, and also what we do. We have a great dinner in the evening that honors those families, honors those foundations, and usually a great speaker and someone that will. But our support comes from basically people within the Los Angeles, Southern California community that really don't have access to support military. So we get a lot of people that trust. They look at us. They trust us with their dollars, and we take that trust very seriously. And because we are just a pass-through organization, we have a very small staff. The girls in our office here and the girls and guys in the office all chip in for the Veterans Day event. The people in our hotel, we have a hotel with a couple of golf courses here in the Los Angeles region, and they also chip in, and everybody's very proud of what they do and the work that we do as a foundation. And I think the foundations, we seem to get high marks from the foundations we support for what they get from us. So thank you.
So Kent, what do you see as some of the biggest areas of need with our returning veterans right now? Are there areas where we really should be helping more?
There's always, there's always need for help. That one of the biggest problems we have with veterans is that it's hard. The veterans won't reach out, and it's hard to reach those veterans, and it's hard to get those veterans get their trust for support. It's one of those things where I'm very close to it because I see a lot of it, and I deal with it with the foundations, and I listen to the stories that they tell us. But the reality of it is these men come back from combat, whether it's Afghanistan, Vietnam guys, or most of us are dead. I mean, whatever, but or going to be. Anyway, the Afghanistan, these guys come back there. They still carry a heavy burden, and it's something that it's, I think there's a lot of people there that want to help. There's a lot of veterans out there that don't get help. And unfortunately, we're still seeing a very high suicide rate amongst men and women, by the way. People think of the suicide veterans as mostly being men, but the reality of it is, on a ratio basis, there's more women commit suicide than men, from what I've understood from some of the military people that know that.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely many areas of need, and an organization like yours that knows what that is and where to put those funds that can best be used is really great to have. So it is, there's a lot of organizations out there, but to put your trust into your organization, I think is a good way to go. Sure.
I think that, one of the things I started to say something about was the veteran centers. I think there are 10 or 12 universities that we support veteran centers, including, of course, the University of Idaho, and we're proud of that. But those centers do a great job in working with many of those students have PTSD, and a lot of them don't realize that a lot of the people that come into those programs aren't really aware of it, but they start to find a home, they start to find trust in the people they're working with and the leadership in those departments. And I am just so proud to say that the University of Idaho's Veterans Center is an incredible organization with great leadership.
Definitely. Kent, we have a couple questions that are coming in. So I want to circle back around to a question that came in regarding going back to your leadership development that you experienced through the Navy ROTC department. How impactful was that development on your military and your civilian leadership abilities?
I think, first of all, those programs develop interest. And the more interested you become in a program and and what it has to offer, the more prepared you become for that leadership. I mean, it's leadership is taught. I think through football, anytime you are joining a team, anytime you're with a team or part of a team, you're learning you're learning more and more about leadership and about development. I mean, I still watch Survivor, and I look at these people, and boy, that person's going to do this, or that person's going to, and it's there. You'll see leadership skills come out of those people, but everybody has the ability to be a leader. They just have to be found. That leadership has to be found in them. I mean, you could take a rifle platoon and take 30 guys and try to walk through that platoon and say which one of these guys are going to become a hero in World War II or in Korea or Vietnam or any other military situation, and you never know who's going to step up and carry that carry that banner or carry the trumpet or carry the flag. You just don't know until we find out later.
Very good point. Last year at our graduation ceremony, we had a fantastic keynote, and he addressed and mentioned how it was challenging right now to recruit younger people to the military. And so I'm not sure if you have some insight on that, anything that might help drive more to join the military, since it sounds like it is quite a need right now.
Well, that's an interesting statement. So I'm at a wedding in Hawaii with a lot of young men and young people that are, and they're mostly around 30, 31, 32 years old. And we're watching C-17s fly over and some DC-10s all loaded with paratroopers and all these people. And these guys are going, well, what's going on? And I said, well, what's going on is really interesting, and you ought to be interested. I said, what's your position in the draft? And they all looked at me like what? What do you mean? Like, they don't even know what the word is. I mean, so, our government, our country has allowed us to take the word draft out of the system. I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, there's a lot of words that you can't say anymore, and draft must be one of them. I mean, I'm just shocked that they have no idea what the draft status is. So, unless I think it's certainly part of the Congress. It's certainly part of our military, perhaps, or our draft system, for not at least, everybody should get a draft notice of what their status is, a letter from the government saying, things may get hot around here, and everyone thinks that the war is always going to be on foreign soil, and it may not be. And if who is going to stand up? And we have 1% of our young people that serve our nation today in the military, and that is not enough to win a battle against the foes that we're looking at, especially when we're spread out on three fronts like we are today. So there's a lot going on in that regard. But I think the draft, I don't think it has to be called a draft. You can call it military preparedness. You can call it diversity. You could call, let's diversify and get, get a new term for it. I don't care what you call it, but people ought to be aware that they may be needed someday to protect their families.
Thank you.
And Ed and I are ready to go. So
good. I'm glad we have wise men like you. We have in the alumni organization a Vandal veterans program. We have a lot of alumni that are veterans, which is fantastic. So it's being we're kind of pulling. We just kicked it off not that long ago. Kate Colvin, who works for me and out of the Coeur d'Alene Center, is kind of leading that effort. She's worked a lot with the military. I would enjoy getting some of your opinions on how maybe we can have our own Vandal veterans that are alumni. How can we get them to engage more? And what kind of things do you think might be meaningful to an organization that are alumni veterans?
Well, I think Brad Martin is on here someplace. And Brad, you guys have a big Veterans Day event. Maybe Brad could talk a little bit more about that. Brad, do you want to come on and
he's welcome to
a little bit of word on that?
Brad,
yes, sir.
If you can introduce yourself real quick, that'd be great.
Of course. Hi, everybody. I am Brad Martin. Another one of my dinner compadres here that's on the screen is Jason Neerman. He's the Director of Military and Veteran Services here at U of I. But in a nutshell, over a decade ago, we started here a veterans dinner that kind of started with about 30 people. And every year it has grown and grown. And now we host this dinner every Veterans Day in the ICCU arena. And we have 600 people that attend. It's, to my knowledge, the largest veterans dinner in the entire state of Idaho. And we will have the dinner again this year on Saturday, which of course is Veterans Day this year. And our guest speaker this year is a woman named Lisa Hallett. And Lisa Hallett, 2 weeks after her third child was born, her husband was killed in Afghanistan. And she went on to form an organization called Wear Blue, Run to Remember, which uses physical fitness as a way to support the Gold Star community. And that has now grown into a national level organization. And she's got some ties here to Idaho as well. And so we're really looking forward to that. But it's a magical event, and can't wait for Saturday.
All right.
Thank you, Brad. Thank Jason, who's also on. But yeah, I got to attend my first one last year, and it was fantastic. And it's just, I think that's definitely one way in which we can engage our alumni and our veterans and together. And sometimes they're the same people. And really,
I was really not shocked, but I was really proud to see that they had such a great attendance at that veterans dinner, and again, everything we can do for veterans today. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world, and just about the time you think that, gee, there really isn't any need for our support anymore, all of a sudden, you look around and there's more need than ever. So each year we kind of made a mistake. The first year we had the event, we thought, okay, this is great, we did well. It's hard to ask everybody to do it every year, to ask for this much money, because our foursomes are very expensive. So, and that's the way we raise money. So we thought maybe we'd take a year off, and then we started thinking about it. We go, well, the veterans don't get a year off, so maybe we better not take a year off. So we had to keep rolling.
I have, there's a couple other topic areas I wanted to hit on, but before I left the military component, we had a really good question coming in from our audience. And they had asked, do you have, one of the things that has been shared with me by my friends who are vets is that they have had a hard time translating their military skills and experiences onto their resume and into a meaningful civilian career path. Do you have any thoughts on how to do that well from your own experiences from that time of your life?
I think that's all very interesting. Governor Schwarzenegger, when he was governor, established a program called Troops to College. And we got involved in that as an organization very early on and provided some financial support for it. And basically what ended up happening is the veteran would apply online at a university, whatever university or whatever college or campus, and start going through requests for transcripts, blah blah blah, and find out and start feeling very quickly he didn't qualify and couldn't qualify, and would turn the computer off and go out to the bar again. So the Troops to College program ended up getting a veterans website, a veterans portal on the administration website that when they would click in, at least here in California, into a veteran, that you were a veteran, you would be directly to a phone and to a person and to someone to talk to, versus trying to do this online. And as what all the presidents found out, they would go through these through the military students' history. Maybe he was got to be staff sergeant, a sergeant, and did training in foreign languages. Maybe he had developed a foreign language, and so they ended up being able to provide credits for college for these incoming military veterans, and that started a great program that's reached across the country, and I think is very successful in bringing these veteran students into a job. Now, the next problem is transitioning from a military life into a civilian life. You would think that the Lance Corporal is going to have a much more difficult time than a bird colonel coming out. I think it's really the opposite. The officer corps, the officers that I've interviewed and tried to work with and tried to help, have a very difficult time trying to find a spot if they say they didn't finish their career. Remember, they have 10 years and they come out, they were flying B-2 bombers and doing missions across the world, and all of a sudden they're out there in a life. Well, they can probably get a job as a pilot, but maybe they don't want to fly anymore. Trying to transition into the civilian business life is another job, but we have a lot of corporations out there that will hire veterans and I think that it's, they're not hiring those veterans based on sympathy. I think that they actually see a quality in that veteran that he can really provide support, enthusiastic support to a company and help them grow.
Wonderful.
I did meet one of the guys that I did interview was interested in joining a hockey team. He was a hard-charging staff sergeant, did a lot of training and stuff. So he joined the Ducks. I got him an interview with the Ducks, and he went down and joined the Ducks team and became their team motivator. He did motivational speeches to the team before they got in games, and they tried him out for like a season, and it seemed to work, and he's still working for him. So
fantastic.
Work out. I mean, who knows?
Well, speaking of motivation, I wanted to transition a little bit because I'm very curious about the Bob Rope Cancer Foundation. What motivated you to co-found this organization? Tell us a little bit more about that organization.
Well, Bob Rope was a leader in our community and a lobbyist up in Sacramento, and basically taught me a lot about politics and politics within the state and federal level. But he was a very personal man. He passed away at a young age, and myself and several cohorts and other good friends formed a cancer foundation that we basically raised funds for the Ken Norris Cancer Center at USC, which is also part of the Los Angeles hospital system, LA County hospital system. But we ended up supporting a research lab at the Ken Norris Center, and we did that for many years. We actually we just a year ago we ended up closing the foundation and merging it with another foundation with the proceeds that we had left over. Unfortunately, most of my boards of directors are in another area. So
That's wonderful.
I ended up trying to do most of the work, and it wasn't working anymore.
Well, you definitely have a philanthropic heart, and you give and give and give. What is it that maybe would you recommend to encourage other people to be equally as giving? Maybe not equally, but at least give it a start in terms of being more philanthropic.
First of all, the thing that the greatest thing that I found in being involved with Land of the Free Foundation is the foundations and the people that we've met are so dedicated and personally, most of them are personally driven by an event like I was with the Bob Rope Cancer Foundation. Someone in their family or someone close to them, maybe in the military, maybe they have a family member with PTSD, drug-related events, alcoholism. I can say proudly that I am an alcoholic, that I've been clean, and for 35 years I haven't, and it's something I would tell everybody. I don't know why I should hide it, but I'm very proud of the fact that I lead a great life, and I feel healthy, and the fact that I've basically been through that program. So I'm very happy to say that fortunately right now I'm healthy. Who knows what happens tomorrow?
Thank you. Thanks, Ken. I just wanted to point out to folks, if you look in the chat, there's some great links that people have been posting. I mean, Jason linked to an excellent organization that helps connect veterans with companies that want to hire them. Sandy has put in the references to links of organizations that Kent has referenced. I will also mention, Kent, there's several people that have known you back in the day. So we have a couple Fiji.
Well, if they're still alive, then they weren't running with me. I can tell you that.
Well, there are definitely some Fijis on this call, which I think is fantastic. So I did want to kind of circle back because there were a couple of questions dating back to your University of Idaho days that we didn't get to ask. But can you give us kind of a fond memory or funny memory of your Fiji days without revealing the secrets? We all know that that's a concern. So
as all fraternity, the fraternity life is a great life. A lot of camaraderie, a lot of great funny things that happen, great stories. We have I noticed Mr. Sonen's was on our event here someplace. I saw his name up there a while ago.
He is. He's there.
We have a chat line. He has a chat line for all the Fijis once a month on a Tuesday, and it's always great to hear these old, and it's always the old guys that are talking. I guess the young guys aren't as interested in telling stories of past days, but there's a lot of stories to be told, and those guys that know them, just keep them to yourself. I don't really care. Whatever. It's great.
That's great. We're going to try to put in the link to Ken. I don't know if you've got your copy of the book that Mitch Sonen helped put together, since he's on here, and Don Shelton. But it's a fantastic book about the history of the Fiji House. So we'll try to get a link in there for anybody that might be interested in
it's
that.
Not really secret.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little bit more about your days in Moscow. What was the culture like? What have you seen now? Do you ever get back up to campus and see the difference of then versus now?
I have been back to campus. The town is larger. It's still the same. It's a great community. It's a great just like Lewiston. There hasn't been a huge amount of growth as far as expansion, but the people there, and the people at the university, the people in Moscow, the people in Lewiston, where I was raised, when I go back, it's the same families. My cousin is 91 or 92 now, Dick Riggs, and he's a University of Idaho graduate. And his wife Barbara just passed away this past year, but he's still very active. Goes to baseball games over at the Lewis and Clark campus there, and when you drive around Moscow, I took my wife out. My wife went to Penn State. We've been married 39 years. We just celebrated our 39th anniversary, and I go back to Penn State with her every year. And the first time she visited the campus, she just was marveled. She just couldn't get over it because there was she felt such a great connection to the Penn State campus and our campus. And when I go back to Penn State for a football game every year. And when I get back there, I see the same thing. It's obviously larger campus, but the same kind of people are on that campus. And it's really, it warms your heart to see Middle America. It's great. It's a great thing to see. We were able to drive outside of Moscow. I drove outside of Moscow and just got on a farm road and kept driving and driving. I probably got about 20 miles out of town, and there was snow drifts out there and a clean air, and pulled up on top of this road and just turned the car off and looked at the rolling Palouse, and it's so beautiful, and it's still the same. And those people that live there should stay there.
It is beautiful. Bill White is one of those people that says hello that's online, and he's a Fiji, and he recalls you having a wonderful touchdown and seeing a touchdown that you made against the University of Washington, I believe it was.
So Oregon State, yes.
Okay, excellent. So do you still tune into our football program?
Yes, I'm very excited. You're 5-1 in conference and 7-2 overall, I think it is. And it looks like we have a big game coming up this weekend with Weber State. Ooh. And then another one, the game after that, I can't remember. I don't know what happened to the two Montanas. We won one Montana game and lost one. The games we lost, we barely lost. When I was playing, the games we lost, we really lost.
That's correct.
So Bill White he said, it says Anne's iPad. Yeah, so he's waving hello to you right now. So
how are you?
Doing great.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
We're still alive.
Where do you live?
We live in Concord, California, which is outside San Francisco.
Sure. Yeah, I'm in Southern California. So
yeah.
Thank you for chiming in, Bill. Really appreciate your comment on that. We only have a few more minutes here, so I think I just wanted to capture a few more of these questions that we got.
I see Mr. Alford Jr. is online, and I knew his father well, and sorry to see that.
Alfred.
Thank you for seeing that, Kent. So in your bio, we refer to you as a very successful and celebrated leader. Do you resonate with that? Do you see yourself that way?
No, I don't. No, that's, when you're blessed is all I can say. And I've been blessed, and my family's been blessed. It's you just have to look back and count your blessings. I mean, things can change quickly. That's the only thing I know. That's why I keep working. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. So, keep working hard, and, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, Kent, you've accomplished so much in your lifetime. And are there things that you haven't done yet that you want to do that you feel like is something you really are going to do?
If you're around Ed Roski, you'll see a lot of accomplishments, but he and I did a trip to Iwo Jima this year in May, and we went back and traced World War II through the Marianas, and had an incredible experience going to Saipan, Tinian, Guam, all of those islands, and seeing the World War II. We had four World War II veterans with us that accompanied the group, and it's unique to be able to get into Iwo Jima, onto Iwo Jima. Only one plane load of people get in there a year from outside of Japan. I don't know how many, I think very few, period. They have a ceremony every year. We were basically there for the 75th anniversary, which was to be held during COVID year, but this is the first year after COVID that they opened it up so they could have that anniversary. But it was quite an event. I was able to get to the top of Suribachi and see where they planted the Marine Corps flag and have that feel of those events and those people that served before me. And I have so much respect for our military, as you probably would understand.
Wow. Well, I'm sure there are so many more things we're going to hear about you and other accomplishments that you will yet to have. And so are there things that we didn't ask you that you want to share with us?
Let me just see here. I just want to say that, yeah, all of the people that I've lost so many great friends, and a lot of those attended the university, and I can just say that as you get older, you do lose friends. But the great thing is, whenever I think of them, I have a great smile on my face because I remember doing great things and fun things with those people. So they'll always be remembered by me.
That's wonderful, Kent. And speaking of friends, that Mitch Sonnen weighed in that Butch Alford is also on the call. So that might be a name from your past that
Yes.
you know. So hi, Butch. Thanks for joining us today. And President Green joined us as well. So
President Green, I love. Yes.
yeah. He's also made a clarification. Everybody needs to know Weber is this Saturday, and then our last game is with Idaho State University.
Yes.
That's our last home game on November 18th. And
Take care of those guys.
yes, we do need to take care of those both those games. We will definitely. Kent, I really appreciate your time today. Sandy, thank you very much for all your help. Brad and Jason, we just really appreciate our partnership with the veterans, and we have more to do. And you gave us some great inspiration and some wonderful ideas. And we hope to roll out the red carpet and meet with you when you come back to Moscow. Come back and enjoy those rolling hills, because it's
Back. I try to come back for the pig dinner, as Mitch knows. And
well, good
event, and all of those any of the other Fijis that are out there. Look forward to seeing you at the events.
And we'll stay tuned for our next Cup of Joes that'll be coming up for the holidays. We've got some fun things planned that just keep in touch with your alumni office, and you'll know when those are going to be listed soon. And Kent, thank you so much for your service and everything that you do for the university and for veterans and everything else that you do. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this, and it's nice to be able to give back a little bit. Thank you.
All right. And with that, go Vandals. And thank you.
Yes,
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.